Hundreds of activists formed a human chain outside one of the main plenary halls at the United Nations Climate Summit on what is traditionally their biggest protest day during the two-week talks. The demonstration in Baku, Azerbaijan, will be echoed at sites around the world in a global Day of Action for Climate Justice that's become an annual event. Activists waved flags, snapped their fingers, hummed and mumbled chants, with many covering their mouths with the word silenced. Demonstrators held up signs calling for more money to be pledged for climate finance, which involves cash for transitioning to clean energy and adapting to climate change. It comes as negotiators at the venue try to hammer out a deal for exactly that. But progress has been slow, and observers say the direction of any agreement is still unclear. Keep fighting. Liddy Nakbal said protesters like her are not surprised about how negotiations are going. But past wins, such as a loss and damage fund that gives developing nations cash after extreme weather events exacerbated by climate change, keep organizers going, said Nakbal, a coordinator with the Asian People's Movement on Debt and Development. The role we play is to increase the pressure, she said of the action. We know we're not going to get the results that the world needs in this round of negotiations, but at least to bring us many steps closer is our hope, is our aim. I think we have no option but to keep fighting. It's the instinctive response that anyone, any living being, living creatures will have, which is to fight for life and fight for survival. Tasneem Essop said she was inspired by the action, which was challenging to organize. To be able to pull off something where people feel their own power, exercise their own power and get inspired in this creative way. I'm super excited about this, she said. Essop said she's not very optimistic about an outcome on finance, but knows next week will be pivotal. We can't end up with a bad deal for the peoples of the world, those who are already suffering the impacts of climate change, those who need to adapt to an increasing and escalating crisis, she said. We fight until the end. Climate cash. Negotiators at COP29, as the talks are known, are working on a deal that might be worth hundreds of billions of dollars to poorer nations. Many are in the global south and already suffering the costly impact of weather disasters fueled by climate change. Several experts have said $1 trillion or more annually is needed both to compensate for such damages and to pay for a clean energy transition that most countries can't afford on their own. Samir Bajanov, deputy lead negotiator of this year's climate talks, said in a press conference that the climate finance talks were moving too slowly. I want to repeat our strong encouragement to all parties to make as much progress as possible, he said. We need everyone to approach the task with urgency and determination. Diego Pacheco, a negotiator from Bolivia, said the amount of money on the table for developing countries needs to be loud and clear. No more speeches but real money, he said. Observers also were disappointed at the pace of progress. This has been the worst first week of a COP in my 15 years of attending this summit, said Mohamed Adao, of climate think tank Power Shift Africa. There's no clarity on the climate finance goal, the quality of the finance, or how it's going to be made accessible to vulnerable countries. I sense a lot of frustration, especially among the developing country blocs here, he said. Panama Environment Minister Juan Carlos Navarro agreed, telling the Associated Press he is not encouraged by what he's seeing at COP29 so far. What I see is a lot of talk and very little action, he said, noting that Panama is among the group of countries least responsible for warming emissions but most vulnerable to the damage caused by climate change fuel disasters.